Friends, the topic of this evening's short talk is symbolism of the bird. So let us begin by briefly considering what is the meaning of a symbol. A symbol is a mark or character used as a conventional representation of an object, function, or process. Few examples may be considered. For example, the letter or letters standing for a chemical element or a character in musical notation, or, for example, the mathematical operations which we have learned to use since our childhood, the addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and is equal to. These may be considered as examples of mathematical operations being represented by symbols. Similarly, chemical elements being represented by their symbols in the periodical table is yet another example of the way we are using symbols. Having considered what is the meaning of a symbol and a few examples of the same, let us briefly consider what is the meaning of symbolism. Symbolism is the use of symbols to represent ideas or qualities or objects or facts. And the art or practice of using symbols, especially by investing things with a symbolic meaning or by expressing the invisible or intangible by means of visible or sensuous representations. Now, such an art, such a practice can be referred to as symbolism. Now, coming to the symbolism of birds, which is the topic under consideration this evening, we can apply the same definition of symbolism in a limited sense to use the birds as symbols to represent ideas, qualities, objects, or facts. Certain common uses of bird symbols. For example, the sparrow is used as a symbol to raise awareness of the house sparrow in relation to the environment. And as we all know that over the years, since our childhood, we have seen that the population of the sparrows are decreasing. And it is thought that the sparrows have decreased in their population because of the adverse environmental conditions which we have created for ourselves. So the World Sparrow Day is celebrated, or sorry, observed on March 20th every year. Here we see use of the symbol of a bird, parrot, to spread awareness in relation to the environment. Yet another commonly used symbol is the symbol of a dove, a white dove, which is associated with the concept of peace and pacifism. And they often appear on the banners and signs at events promoting peace, such as in the Olympic Games. They raise a flock of white doves at the inauguration of the each and every season of the game. And contrary to the symbol of a dove, which is a symbol of peace, a person who advocates the use of military force as opposed to diplomacy is called as a hawk, is referred to as a hawk symbolically. very well known, the seal of United States of America as the American bald eagle symbolizes the concept of strength and freedom. These are some of the well-known symbols in which the birds are used to represent certain ideas like strength, freedom, peace, diplomacy, military force, and so on. Not only that, we also bestow symbols of birds on ourselves. For example, a flyer in the Indian Air Force gets a badge which has wings. So also a paratrooper also gets wings. Now these symbols are a representation of an idea of the personal effort and the merit a person has put into to obtain those wings. Now, having considered a certain everyday uses of the symbols of the birds, we will now consider a few examples of the symbol of the birds used in the ancient scriptures and old archaeological monuments. Now, here is one example of a symbol of the bird raven used in chapter 8 of Genesis, which Madame Blavatsky referred to in the secret doctrine. Now, this symbol, as the word indicates, is a symbol of Genesis. Now, one key which Madame Blavatsky gives us while reading the chapter on Genesis in Bible is, Madame Blavatsky says, while referring to one of the works called Source of Measures, that the word raven appears once in that extract, the chapter, and the word dove appears 5 times. And she gives certain esoteric calculations associated with the word raven and dove. The value of dove, the numerical value of the word dove being 71, and 5 times 71 is 355, and the numerical value of raven, which is used but once, is 678, which is 113 times 6. And now the diameter of the circle with the circumference of 355 is approximately 113. 6 diameters, or the raven crossing, will divide the circle with the circumference of 355 to 12 parts. And this correlation between chapter 8 of the Genesis to the very first word appearing in Genesis, beginning, which the equivalent of which in Hebrew is Rash, meaning head or substance or beginning. So, Madame Blavatsky says and gives out a secret reading of how to understand the appearance of the word dove 5 times and raven 1 time. And she says, the secret reading of the first verse of the Genesis being in Rash or head developed gods, the heavens, and the earth. And she says that it is easy to comprehend the esoteric meaning of the raven once that the like meaning of flood is ascertained. The chief meaning is that of a news cycle. The raven yields the same numerical value as the head and returned not to the ark, while the dove returned carrying the olive branch. When Noah, the new man of the new race, prepared to leave the ark, the womb of terrestrial nature. And this is a symbol of the purely spiritual, sexless, and androgyne man of the first 3 races who vanished from the earth forever. Now, these kind of cryptic, esoteric meanings of certain scriptures is given, and the words and the names of the birds are used to arrive at certain esoteric understanding of the scriptures. One such instance, which is quite cryptic to understand, is given in the secret doctrine. Now, yet another symbol is the god Thoth, who is portrayed with the head of an ibis. The picture of a black-headed ibis is on the right side of the slide. Now here again, the god Thoth is said to be the god of wisdom and of authority over all other gods. He is the recorder and the judge who records the thoughts, words, and deeds of men and weighs them in the balance, similar to the Lipikas in our scriptures, similar to the Chitragupta, who records everything. But not only that, he also has a balances the thoughts, words, and deeds of men and weighs them in the balance. So, it is a representation, the Thoth God is a representation of the registrar and the recorder and the judge in the hall of the dead. Now, certain details can be seen in the figure of Thoth. For example, in the right hand, Thoth is seen to be carrying a tow, a cross with a handle. One meaning of that is it has T and a O. So it's a monogram of the name itself, Tau. And the meaning of Tau is well known in the esoteric works. The second is that in the left hand, Thoth is seen carrying a rod with the head of the serpent at its top edge. And this can be seen again as a symbol of wisdom. And yet again on the head, we can see a disc, which also has its equivalent representations. Now, coming to why the head of an ibis is placed on the top, one more reason is given. Ibis, the bird, is said to devour the snakes and the eggs of the snakes in Egypt. It's found in a large number. So it is the head of the god Thoth is said to devour the bad serpents, the wicked serpents, or the evil nature. That is one of the symbols. And judge, a very well known symbol. A very well known symbol of phoenix, which is said to be a bird with a 500-year life cycle. And it is said about this unique bird of mythology that once one life cycle is about to end, this bird spontaneously self combusts, and from the ashes, again the bird is reborn to begin a new life. The symbol is very obvious. The symbol is that of renewal, rebirth. It may be the renewal and rebirth of the cosmos, or the rebirth or reincarnation of the human, of the man. So the phoenix symbolizes such an idea. In the same lines, we have the Indian version of phoenix, Garuda, the allegorical, monstrous half man and half bird, said to be the vehicle of Vishnu, who is time. Yet again, this emblem is a symbol of cyclic and periodical time, and in the esoteric works, it is said that it is equivalent representation of a Mahakalpa and co-eternal with Vishnu. Now further, there is yet another symbol who is called to be the son or nephew of Garuda, Jatayu, who appears in Ramayana. Now Garuda being the Mahakalpa or great cycle, Jatayu, the king of the feathered tribe, when on the point of being slain by Ravana, who carries off Sita, says, speaking of himself, he says, "It is 60,000 years, O king, that I am born," after which, turning his back on the sun, he dies. Oh. So, Jatayu, again one esoteric representation of a smaller cycle compared to Mahakalpa, a smaller cycle of 60,000 years, hence called as the son or the nephew of Garuda. Yet another symbol of a bird. In the top left corner, we can see a small owl. A small owl. This is called as the owl of Athena in the Greek mythology, or the owl of Minerva in the Roman mythology. And the owl itself, as we all know, has the ability to see in the dark. So it is used as a symbol of wisdom, to see in, to have an understanding as to one's own self amidst ignorance, if we can equate the term darkness with our ignorance of our own selves. Yet another symbol used in the mythologies. This is again a very well known symbol, the vulture of Prometheus. Where in the bottom right corner we can see the vulture pecking at the regenerated and ever growing liver of Prometheus. It is called as the vulture of passion. Mythology says that Prometheus was chained to a rock or a pillar, and Zeus sent a vulture to eat his immortal liver. This was the punishment which Zeus bestowed on Prometheus for having stolen the fire, the knowledge of fire, and then given it to the humanity, which is again a symbol of the ideas which were given to man to dispel his ignorance. And for that, it is graphically said that his liver is pecked at every night, because the liver regrew every night and the vulture returned each day to perpetually torment Prometheus. So, yet another interpretation of such a vulture pecking at the liver, which regrows every night, is that the body which is bound to the rock or the pillar, the physical body, may be called as the ignorance which is within us, and the vulture which pecks at us is the result of our own passions, which is very painful to us. So, a symbol of the action of law of karma can be seen in the imagery of the vulture of Prometheus. Yet another symbol of the bird swan, Hansa. The picture is used of the symbol of Ramakrishna mission. Now, Hansa esoterically means Hamsa, which is equal to Ahamsa. Three words meaning I am he in English. The same word Hamsa divided in other way will read So Hum. He is I. And Madam Blavatsky says that in this alone is contained the universal mystery, the doctrine of identity of man's essence with God essence for him who understands the language of wisdom. We can find yet another allusion to the symbol of the parrot in the stories of Piplika Marga, Markata Marga, and Shuka Marga, or the way of the ant, the way of the monkey, the way of the parrot, respectively. We all know the characteristic of ants, that it slowly climbs up to the trunk of the tree and marches forward to the branch and finally reach the fruit. On the contrary, a monkey jumps from one tree to another, lands on the branch which has fruits, and grabs the fruit. Now, the parrot, the swift bird it is, directly fly from the sky to the branch of the tree with the fruits. So, what does this symbol of the bird say? It is about the not to define in strict compartments, but about the various ways to attain wisdom. That is one of the symbols represented by the Shuka Marga, or the way of the parrot. And then we have the famous parable of two birds from the Kathopanishad, where we can see that the bird on the left is pecking at the fruit and enjoying the fruit, while the bird on the right is quietly sitting on the branch and then observing. In Kathopanishad, these birds are used to describe the relationship between the individual self and the supreme selves, where the tree itself may be said to represent the universe and the birds representing the individual self and the supreme self. And the fruit obviously represents the objects of sense, which, if we partake of it, are very likely to be bound to it and be intoxicated by it. So, friends, with these few symbols of birds, what is it that we can take away by looking at all these symbols of birds? As we saw, the art or practice of using bird symbols to represent ideas, qualities, or objects or facts in nature. This art may be said to be as old as humanity itself, because many of the mythologies use the symbols of birds to express eternal verities. And also, one more thing we can see is that across the globe, be it the Greek, the Roman, or the Indian civilization, we see that all the civilizations use the birds as symbols in their mythology to convey eternal verities. We saw that the birds are used to represent the law of cycles. We also saw that the symbol of bird is used to convey the idea of reincarnation of man. Also, the law of karma. For example, we saw the symbol of phoenix, which is, one may say, a symbol of immortality of man, the real man, Manas. So, to sum up, we can say that the symbology of the birds captured in the mythology, rather than the symbols, ideas it represents in the current day, would lead us in the way to understand our own natures and the very purpose of our existence. So, in this regard, it is apt to recount the words of Patanjali, who says that the universe, including the visible and the invisible, exists for the sake of soul's experience and emancipation. That being the case, whatever we see in nature, be it the birds, the plants, the rivers, the mountains, everything exists for the soul's experience and emancipation. So does the symbolism of birds lead towards soul's experience and emancipation. And it is also apt to recount one of the verses in the Bible which says, "But ask the animals and they will teach you, or the birds in the sky and they will tell you, or speak to the earth and it will teach you, or let the fish in the sea inform you." So the symbolism of birds definitely teaches us about who we are and what is our destiny. So with this few words, we will open up the stage for any questions or any thoughts